I graduated at North High School in 1940, went to Iowa State, and I was on Iowa State's campus when Pearl Harbor was bombed. In fact, I was in the library like a good student. I just happened to be in the library. They said, "Well, Pearl Harbor's bombed." "Oh yeah, yeah." You said, "Yeah, well, yeah." Well, and then you get to think, "Where's Pearl Harbor?" I never heard of Pearl Harbor. It was required that to take ROTC, I mean, I didn't have any excuse not to. It was all right with me. We had a draft board. The Judge Grun was the chairman. He was a Jewish fellow who was a judge
Here
in Des Moines.
Okay.
And he was head of the draft. I went to see him personally. I don't know why I was there, but he had talked to me. I had to visit with him about something, and he said, "Well, are you in school?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I'll tell you what." He said, we used the term Negro then, as rather than African American or whatever. And he said, we don't have very many Negroes in college. And he said, if you're in college, you're making passing grades, he said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to send you to the war, to the military, Well, I was kind of ambivalent about it. I wasn't trying to not go, but I wasn't trying to go either initially. I'd go to church and meet these parents, friends, neighbors, and they say, "Well, Jimmy, what are you still doing here? My son's over in Guam, or Well, I got to thinking about that. I said, I don't know if I want to just be isolated. I could see the future where everybody said, "Well, you stayed home while we were over there getting shot at, So I didn't want that either. So I wanted to carry my share of the load, So I got to thinking. I said, I said I did want to fly an airplane, And when that kind of came along and got in the mix, it sounds like it would be interesting, I finally concluded that I did want to go into the Army Air Corps, and I found out I could get in if I could pass tests. I didn't stay at Camp Dodge but about a week.
Right.
And after I took all these, the first day or two, I took these tests, and they came to me and told me that I had passed, and I was going to the Army Air Corps, and for which I was pleased. By the time I had been here about 5 days, they came to me and told me, said, "You're leaving tomorrow morning, or right away." And I was going to south to Biloxi, Mississippi. Now everything's segregated. White and black don't do anything together. But I didn't know how it was going to be in Mississippi. I knew it wasn't going to be good. But when we got on the train, there were 2 white guys and me. The 3 of us were going to St. Louis. And I went to get on the train, and the guy wouldn't let me on the train. I had all these papers, official papers. I knew U.S. government. I knew I was legitimate. And yeah, this is Uncle Sam here, And he said, well, what I didn't know, it was the Jim Crow car. The trains were segregated, starting in St. Louis. And I as a black person, I could not get on the train where the white people were getting on. Well, I had to get on the Jim Crow car. That was up close to the coal part. But the difference, they would have somebody get on the train with like ham sandwiches or something like that. You didn't. Now they had dining car for the white people. Yeah, but for African Americans, they have some guy with some fried chicken or ham sandwiches or something. Yeah, we got to Gulfport. Okay. When we got there first, when we got down there, Looked like the engine of the train was almost in the water, almost in the ocean. We were right at the Gulf. And they had a military van, a big with a canvas cover over it, to take the soldiers off the train to go from Gulfport to Biloxi. And that was only 20 miles, 10 or 15 miles, something like that, from Gulfport to Biloxi. I had to wait to let all these white guys get on this thing before I got on. And then I had to go walk through all of them to go to the back, because blacks had to be in the back and the whites in the front. And some of them got smart with me, pushed me and shoved me and all that stuff like that. And hell, I couldn't do nothing because, hell, one of me and it seemed like about 100 of them. I was just glad that the end of that trip was in sight. And I can remember the first thing I heard, I was seeing all these guys working out there on the air base, and they saw this trailer, some trailer coming in, pulling people, and all they would say, "You'll be sorry." I remember, "You'll be sorry." I didn't care. Everybody I saw yelled, "You'll be sorry." After I got there, I knew what they were talking about. The initial training, well, what they wanted you to do is know that every place you go, you're going to go pretty much in formation. You're going to walk with other guys, and so they start you out with drill, all kinds of drill, marching and drilling and so forth. And of course, they sent us on bivouacs very, very soon. But what they do is they run you something awful, and of course that persisted through when I was in cadets too. Hell, I bet I could run from here to the fairground and back at that time. Before it was over. And they called me in one day. They found out somebody had lost records. They didn't even know I was there. They didn't know I was in the Army. See, I was supposed to be in Tuskegee in about 30 days. I didn't get to Tuskegee till after Christmas. Tuskegee was a college campus. They had, it was called Tuskegee Institute at that time. It was mostly all classwork and drill and physical. And we go on bivouacs, camping and stuff like that. Navigation, study aircraft engines. You also study theory of flight. You need to know something about what makes an airplane fly. It's not quite what people think. It's a lot different. But we're dying to get in them. You don't get your wings until about a year. Your first plane that you solo, for us, was the PT-17, the Stearman, and I did that in about, I think it was 6.5 hours. You're not supposed to do it before 7. I did it 6.5 hours. That was the first one to solo. January of '45, we were slated to finish. We weren't thinking about the war being over. We just thinking about the survival. Right. Because because you didn't have anything to say about what you did or what you didn't do anyhow. We were so we graduated. After we graduated, we went from Tuskegee to Pensacola. The war was going kind of tough at that time, I think. And they had all the P-51s were over in Europe, and they didn't have any in the Pacific, I don't think, at that time. So, but while we were there, the word came out we're getting a new airplane, and of course we knew they weren't P-51s, but we did get new P-47s. that were flown into Walterboro, South Carolina. And the thing that shocked us to death, because I didn't know anything about it, was they were all women flying them. Went down to the airfield that day. They said, with these new planes coming in, and we were all excited about it. And when they got out, there was a bunch of women flying them. We thought that, and you know, we thought we were hot shots, you know. The military had this thing all segregated. Blacks and whites couldn't go to the same officers' clubs. They told them, well, they were going to fix a place for them. So some of the guys that were upset, and so we ended up with 104 officers being arrested in quarters in Indiana. I was in a night formation flight when my plane caught a fire, and I had to parachute out. I didn't use the ejection because I was going to try to stay in there and get this fire out. I was riding it and throttling it and thought I'd get this flame out, and I couldn't. So when I finally decided I had to leave, I wasn't thinking about ejection. I just got out. Mm-hmm. Well, the three guys that were in this flight with me, they watched what happened to me, and when I parachuted, they didn't know whether I got out or not. They knew the plane went down. They saw the plane hit and crash. Ended up in this parachute. Well, I wasn't no more than about 10,000 feet up when I got out, I think. When I started to walk any place, I got to thinking, the swamp said, they got alligators there, you know. Snakes. And snakes. The safest thing for me is to climb. There was a tree about this big. I climbed a tree, and I was up about 10, 15 feet off the ground. My leader of this formation, this squadron, he radioed and told them that one of our planes is down, and they knew where it was. Well, our military was good. They had an ambulance and 2-3 trucks and stuff like that. They came pick me up. I came down out of that tree when they got there. I had a girlfriend that I met in Chicago while I was in the service. Okay. And when I got out of the service, we had decided that we wanted to see more of each other. We did. Well, to make a long story short, I had the GI Bill. I was going back to school, and in order to go to school, I had to work if I was going to get married. We kept thinking about getting married, and I went to Drake. Decided to go to Drake, and that's why I took psychology and guidance and counseling and that sort of thing. And that's how I got into education.